So let me tell you about publishing your website. Some of this information will be in the final study guide quiz thing. And also, there's the possibility of you doing some extra credit regarding this. But before I begin, a couple of things. First of all, some people ask me, hey, but this is not a real website we made, right? Yes, it is actually. That's a publishable website that you have your resume. I'm not telling you that you should or need to put it online, but if you decided to, you could. A few different ways, and we'll go over those now too. And remember, from what I said at the very beginning of the semester, even if you never make your own website, just having this knowledge about HTML and CSS will help you should you in the future try to customize a WordPress site or some other template system or something too. Okay, I want to tell you that one of the key things to publishing a website is domain names, which we'll go over. And I want to tell you that domain names are in the news all the time. In fact, this is a Google search right now for domain names in the news. And there's about all kinds of problems with domain name registration, including interesting, a story I just saw. Zoom-related domain names are growing, like Zoom, like, you know, all the video conferencing because everything going on. And because they're being used as malware, trying to make you think you're in Zoom, but you're not, and stealing information and stuff. Criminals are always on top of this stuff. But anyway, there's always lots of news about domain names. It's a big topic area. I have some links here which you could look at about some changes in domain name systems and so on, but those are not that current. I do want to show you this little ad on YouTube. This was a real ad, and about getting your own domain name. Let's watch this.
How is it that JOU317.com is taken?
Somebody already snatched it.
But I'm him. The collection is called John Malkovich.
This is a nightmare.
I really am him. There is a film about me being me.
Isn't it a movie about other people being inside you?
Sure, why not? I need JOU317.com. Who has it?
What the is going on? How the can you be John Malkovich?
Dear Mr. Malkovich, guess who? What the question mark? What the underlined is going on? Sincerely. No. Also, John Malkovich.
Okay, so yes, it is quite important to get your domain name. By the way, if you had any sound problems with hearing that, the link is there. You can go ahead and put the slides up from this presentation, and you can look at the link there too. Okay, here we go. Let me go back to what we were doing here. Okay, let's get going here. So, how will you put your website online? Well, there is the traditional route, which is you get a domain name. That's the base of your URL. It's the something.com, right? A good domain name is critical to success. Think of this as your business name, as your brand. How much is it going to cost you? We say you buy a domain name. I'm going to buy a domain name, but really it's like renting. You have to pay per year. Usually about $5 to $20 per year. And you could pay for web hosting. That's something separate. All right, so we get the domain name and we hold on to that as long as we keep paying the fee. The web hosting is a service at some place that might be the same place as the domain name or might not be, which you're going to have to pay per month for them to keep the place, to rent the space on a server somewhere to put all your files. It can change a lot, the price of it, by how much traffic you get, how many files you have, how much space you take up, how much service you need. There's a lot of flexibility here. If you want an overview of this field, this link, which you can look at yourself, give you some basic information, which can be useful. Remember, when you go to any links learning about web hosting and web design and one thing or another online, you have to watch out for them trying to push you in the direction of certain services or whatnot. They may be getting a kickback from some web hosting services, but that will give you some basic idea anyway. So, what are domain names? Well, as I said, that's that basic part of your URL, the something.com, the something.net, the something.org. And picking one is a really big deal. It's so important to get the right one. So it has to be simple and obvious, short as possible. Should be the name of your brand. If you were going to be doing the domain name for your resume, it would be some version of your name, right? So let me go to GoDaddy, which is a very common place to buy domain names. Wherever you buy your domain name, I'll get to this in a minute on the slides, it always comes from the same place, really. And I could say, I want to get my domain, I want to get Jack Downs. It should be all caps, but anyway. They'll let me know that it's already taken. Oh my gosh, somebody got jackdowns.com. This is just like John Malkovich. By the way, John Malkovich is a fantastic actor with some really strange movies. You should go watch his movie Being John Malkovich, which is what was referred to in that ad. No, it's not just like John Malkovich, except because I had a chance to get jackdowns.com a few years ago. And I said, oh, I'll get it later. And I didn't, and then somebody else grabbed it. But I could get jack-downs.com. It would cost me 99 cents for the first year, as long as I signed up for 3 years or something. There's always some other deal. How about Jack Downs with 2 S's? I don't think that'd be a good idea, really. How about Jack Downs Consulting? That sounds very official. Jack Downs Clothing. I could probably get the Jack Downs. Could I get that? Sounds very pretentious, but it's available. So on and so forth. You should go search your name. And remember, you can always just get the domain name and hold on to it. You don't have to use it. As long as you pay the 99 cents now for the first year, so on and so forth. And just hold on to it. It'll be worth having for the future sometime. And then you could actually use it wherever. You could go use it on your WordPress site or someplace else. So anyway, that's how you find out that domain name, and you struggle and you do a lot of research and so on as far as what you're going to get. And for instance, let's look at this CNET page, and I should have checked some of these links to make sure that they're still active. Domain Names 101, a very useful article. Companies' virtual real estate on the internet is naturally has to be memorable. It's hard to get. It's getting harder and harder to get good domain names because there's so many people that want them. Everybody, of course, is like real estate. They want .com or .net, maybe .org, but everybody wants .com. They want to be in that neighborhood. There's a lot of other extensions out there. They've been expanding, but they really don't do for you what you want. You want a .com. So they talk about going through 5 rounds of searching and so on, using this example person. So you do a quick search as we did, and then it talks about how to go further. So what kinds of things can you do? Perhaps you can perhaps think about adding other words to it, maybe adding other ideas to it to try to get that name that you want. So you could look at that article. This one is actually very useful too. Tips for choosing domain name. Be brandable, make it pronounceable. A lot of people forget that. People will say domain names, and it should correspond to the idea, and it should be pronounceable. And in fact, sometimes they can be mispronounced, as we'll see in just a minute. Think of it as, look at the words together. Remember, some groups of words together, as looking as one word, are distinct and easy to tell that they're separate words. Sometimes they could be read very differently. Keep it short, but not too short. Their example is here, pastascience.com. That sounds interesting. Yes, I'm sure that by now there is such a website. That makes a lot of sense. I can understand that. It would be shorter to say pastasci.com, but that doesn't make as much sense. So it has to be strike a balance between length and having good content and making sense. Goafter.com, that's the best place. Avoid trademark infringement and confusion. You can get a domain name that could be confusing because it might be too similar to another brand, so you better watch out. But they're not. But you can't get somebody else's domain name. I mean, once you get them, you get to hold on to it. Make it instantly intuitive. Make it make sense when you see it. Use keywords sensibly. So usually when you're starting up a new website, you begin with a team of people coming up with every keyword you can imagine someone searching to find your content. And you want to use those keywords in everything from all your content and your headings and so on, and your folder names and everything else, but also for sure, especially some keyword ideas in your domain name. But on the other hand, if you just jam it full of all kinds of crazy keywords, they might be good ones for you, but the domain name might not make sense. Append or modify if necessary. Maybe make it or maybe make it the word shop afterwards. And by the way, you see how these domain names are written with capital letters? That's fine for marketing, but the domain system does not care. It's just letters to them. So in the end, they all become lowercase, right? So on and so forth. Okay, let me continue. And for a laugh, here's some mistakes to avoid. Whoa. Okay, let me show you a few of these. Is this the link I want to use? I don't remember. I'm not going to do a whole bunch of these. These are supposedly real domain name. Oh, I'll accept cookies. Why not? Everybody likes cookies. Worst website names. Is there really a place called Penn Island? PennIsland.com? Well, actually, apparently there might have been. Gotta look and see what the word looks like before you get it, right? How about, and there it is, Penn Island, PennIsland.net. How about let's do a cute version of appetite, right? Maybe someone could read that differently. What about, there's this place, a phrase in French that is fine, but as one word, it might be read differently, especially in English. You have to see how those letters are going to also work with your extension, too. There are a lot of different country extensions, like CK, for instance. Maybe it's black hat ebook. Seems like a problem there. And what was your newsletter? So on and so forth. So just see, you can, ideas that make sense, and when you look at it, you know what you meant to say, but they can be read in different ways, can be a real problem, like for the LA Drape Company. Okay, and if you want to keep on going that, go look at the link yourself there. Okay, so you remember, as I said, the domain names are all registered with the same place. It's ICANN. You can look up what that means. There it is. Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers. It's like the organizational control over domain names everywhere. Of course, remember, domain names are not. They are identifiable and distinct, but they really relate to an IP address, right? And how those things connect and so on is all handled by ICANN. So we go to a domain name registrar. Companies that provide a service. As I said, it costs usually about $5 to $20 a year. Sometimes you get a better deal if you do it over 3 years or 5 years or something, a longer term. By the way, we saw a lot of domain names on GoDaddy there just a moment ago, and that is one of the big ones, and there's many others. Some are very restricted to just almost doing the names, and some like GoDaddy do names and web hosting and other stuff also. Well, GoDaddy would give you the same list as you can see anywhere. However, they might help you to try to buy one that somebody else has already bought. It's just holding on to and speculating on it. That's what some people do. They go buy big bunches of domain names, and then they try to resell them. And those you'll see, they don't come up as being 99 cents a piece. They come up as being $5,000 a piece, perhaps, or some other number. And maybe, though, it's important. Maybe it's worth it if you get just the right domain name. On the other hand, you can also negotiate. More about that in a minute. So, because registrars usually offer other services, hosting, email, e-commerce, and more, comparing fees can be tough. That's the one thing is, you say, well, if you start buying everything in one big package, you might think you're getting a good deal, but are you really? Remember, you can always buy your domain name first and separately, and then decide later what you want to do with it, where you want to host it. So don't feel like you have to be pulled into one deal where they do web hosting everything all at once. You can just get your domain name and then decide later what to do with it. Because you search your domain name at one site doesn't mean you have to buy it there. You could go to a simple search site like one of these and search it there, and then go to GoDaddy and see what kind of a deal you can get on it, or in other places too. You'll get the same list everywhere. You can just look for the best deal, or if you like a certain company, or maybe you will want them to do your hosting and have everything in one place. Maybe you already know that. Domain name resellers. This is what I told you about. Your name is already taken. It doesn't mean you can't buy it, unless they're really using it and they don't want to sell it. But they might just have it to resell. And here's a couple articles, which I'm not going to go into right now, about some strategies about how to buy a registered domain name. And there's other probably newer articles too, if you just want to Google that idea. Suggestions about how you can do it, how you can negotiate for it, if you're ever in that situation. So that was domain names, okay? That's one thing you have to get. We call it buying it, but you actually just buy it for a certain amount of time. Let's just say $5 to $20 a year. Okay, then you're going to need to rent space someplace. Now, if you're going with a service like WordPress or one of the other template services, you probably don't exactly pay for web hosting. You sort of are in different ways, but it's not a separate fee. But web hosting is something otherwise in a traditional method that you need to buy. Prices, as I said, vary a lot, from $3 to $15 a month. And now you can already see this is a lot more expensive than domain names, but it depends on what you want to get, right? You can learn more at these. There's a lot of companies, if you do a search, you'll see a lot of places where they'll say the best web hosting services of this such a year, and they'll go through them, and you'll get to see in general what their prices are. Is it a best buy, how they've been rated as far as service and speed and so on. You do, as I said, remember that some of these companies are also trying to promote certain services and getting kickback too, so you have to be careful, maybe look at a number of sites if you're actually going to look for host serving. Hosting. But Bluehost and HostGator are typically at the top of a lot of lists, so they seem to be pretty well rated. So that's one thing. Also, you may want to spend a little extra money to get some better service. Like maybe you need some hand holding, maybe you need some help with things. So maybe you want some live person to help you with problems. Other considerations. Before you sign up for the web hosting, realize that if you are already planning a WordPress site, you should make sure that they have a good connection with WordPress. WordPress requires some special installation. If you're going to do what we call a self-hosted WordPress site, you want to make sure you're going someplace that has a good and easy installation of WordPress. And you can find that out from WordPress itself. Or perhaps some other, very few of the other template sites offer that idea of self-hosting. And then you may also need an FTP program. You may have seen mentioned that FTP is actually integral to things like Dreamweaver, which has a way to connect to a host through the program. But there still are plenty of separate FTP servers around there. One of the granddaddies of them is FileZilla, which is still around. And I guess I'll go there just to show you. This is FileZilla. It's a free program. Many of these are free. It's a whole different kind of system, a different protocol. It's a way to using FTP, File Transfer Protocol, is a way to move big files around on the internet. So you will likely you'll be given by your web server a location on the internet to put your files, and you'll also be given a password and a username and a password, because it's all protected, of course, and that will all go into FileZilla, which is a pretty easy to use program. With a little bit of work, you'll get it. And then I said Dreamweaver, one of their pluses is that they also include publication kind of services, getting the files up there. That's what once you make the deal for web hosting, you have to get the files there. An FTP program or something that has one like Dreamweaver would do that. And are there free alternatives? Well, yes, there used to be many more actually. Still, some people try to do web hosting through Dropbox, which I think is pretty well closed down now, or through Google Docs, which is very hard to do. And maybe if you do some search for some free, there are some other free services, but usually they put a lot of ads on, and the service is really terrible. So some people try to hack services, free services. There is an alternative here while you're at SUNY Plattsburgh. There used to be a really easy alternative called the My File system, which unfortunately quite recently they just killed. Now they've contracted with Microsoft Azure, which is a really powerful system, and you can use it for free here as long as you're a student and for an unknown amount of time after you're a student. Nobody can tell me how long. Your files will stay there and be safe and your account will be up, but at a certain point Microsoft is going to come asking for money if you want to keep using their service. Anyway, I will show you in a minute on Moodle, or actually you'll look just down below this section on Moodle, you'll see the Azure idea. When you put your website up on Azure, you'll get a link like this, this AzureWebsites.net, some name AzureWebsites.net. It's through Azure, for instance, that I have uploaded all those sample resumes. That's how those are there. Those are actually on the internet through Azure. Now, let's say you don't like that URL, or you do go through some other service that gives you a big ugly URL. Another option is a URL shortening service, such as Tiny or IsGood or Google. And what you would do is you would take this website, this URL that you didn't like so much, and there it is, right? I'm going to copy it, or more likely a really big, long, ugly one, and you would go to IsGood, for instance, which is the one I usually use, and you would paste it in there, and then it would shorten it. It would give you a shorter version, IsGood / and then some random combination of letters or numbers that would go in place. And maybe it's shorter, it's still pretty ugly though, but it is an option. That's what a URL shortening service is, and it could work with you if you ended up with a URL you didn't like through some kind of free system or something. And here is my mention I should have done before, free web hosting and free template services and so on. And here's a couple of links. I'm not going to bother going to them. You can if you wish. Just know that you really don't get anything for free. Occasionally there's a hack. There used to be some really good ones using Dropbox as a public folder and then putting your files in there. But these days, most of that stuff is locked down. But maybe you'll find something, some other free alternative out there that isn't just governed by how long you're a student here. If you do, let me know. Okay, another alternative is, well, also this says My Files, but not My Files is not alive anymore. Maybe Azure, just because you use Azure or some other similar service, some other free service perhaps, doesn't mean you can't get your own URL. You can still buy your URL and you can still have it masked. Well, that means you pay somebody like GoDaddy or WordPress for that matter to say whenever anybody goes to that URL, they really go someplace else. We mask the URL. This is an article about how to do it. So that's another thing. If you get a URL you don't like, you can have it masked. Another alternative, let's say you don't want to go through all this. You just want to show someone that website you made in a job interview or something. You know, you can always just burn it on a CD or DVD for that matter. In fact, you can even get a little fancy if you read about it, and you can make it so that when it gets installed in certain operating systems, only in certain operating systems, so when you put the disk in, it like automatically loads up, opens up a browser and loads up that your website. Some employers don't understand the difference between a WordPress site and another site, but some of them, especially if they're thinking of you having some web work experience, when they see that you have made a by hand site, will understand that that was a much harder thing. You had to learn a lot to do it. So giving them a CD with your website on it might be an alternative. Now this mentions the final exam, but there is no final exam in this version of this class, this strange semester. But these questions or things like this will be on a take-home quiz thing you're going to have. But I mostly have this slide here to remind me to tell you about the extra credit you could do. If you put your resume online using the Azure system, and then send me a link before the final exam period. There is not a final exam, but there'll be something else we'll do like a final. It will be worth not 5 points on the final. No, I'm going to make it bigger extra credit than that. I'm going to make it be worth half a letter grade on your overall grade. But before you do it, first of all, you probably shouldn't do it because it's a long and time-consuming process. Okay, there are links on Moodle a tutorial, not from me, but from the computer services people here. I can't be a whole lot more help, but I could try if you end up trying to do it. Last semester, I had some people try, but the system was broken, and as it turned out, they spent a lot of time on it and couldn't put it up. So that could happen to you too. It's much more important that you get your resume right than try to get this little bit of extra credit on top of it, right? So make this, if you've got nothing else to do, plenty of extra time, you want to try it, try the Azure system. Or maybe sometime in the future you'll want to. If nothing else, you can go to the Moodle site and see the links there about putting it, which is just below this area where you found this video. So give it a try if you wish. Okay, end of the presentation. Thanks for your attention.